You're on the hot seat. We're going to put you on the spot. Your name,
Derek O'Brien,
occupation,
retired quizmaster,
and currently?
public servant.
I'll complete it. 3-time member of the Rajya Sabha. Derek O'Brien, what's your favorite Bengali phrase or saying?
Ma Mati Manush, which means mother, earth and people.
What's a dish from your home or Kolkata you can't resist?
Topshe Maj Bhaja. I think Topshe Maj ka English hota hai American koi, I think, with dal bhat and tarage ektu begun bhaja, which means brinjal.
What's your go-to method for unwinding after a long day?
Music on YouTube. My secret desire has always been to be a DJ. So now I'm going to be DJing at least once a month. Hire me to be the DJ.
DJ Derek.
That's my name, DJ D.
Okay. What's the one book you're currently reading or hope to read?
The one book I'm currently reading, and it's a truthful answer, is Rajdeep Sardesai's book.
The election that surprised India.
Just before this, I read a book on the Anglo-Indians, which my brother Barry wrote, and I want to plug that book, but that book is also worth a read. It documents the history of our community, and in quizzing, the community had a big role to play.
Which Indian author's book do you think everybody should read?
You must read a book by Mahatma Gandhi, or you must read a book by Ambedkar. Choose anything they've written and read it. Or you must read a book by Swami Vivekananda. There's a lot of choice. You can read 111 is must read. Because a lot of the stuff which is going wrong today, they had the basics right.
If you could quiz any Hollywood or Bollywood or film celebrity in anywhere in India, who would it be?
Okay, so it would have to be a 3-day quiz show.
Okay.
The questions would be for 10 minutes, and the rest of it would be kind of breakfast, lunch, dinner, that kind of social.
All right.
10 minutes of quizzing with her family and my family. It's got to be Deepika Padukone.
Very interesting choice.
And I'll tell you why. Because of the way she has opened up on issues which people don't talk about.
On mental health.
Yes, and I think more and more people should come out and talk about difficult issues.
What's your favorite memory from hosting on Vita Quiz Contest?
One particular memory was, because a production house, you want to save money. So we'd hire one car which would do guest 1 and 3 morning, and another car would do guest 2 and 4. Okay, so to save some money. So in the studio, in Nanavati studio in Bombay, the gentleman who finished his celebrity show appearance, the car hadn't come back. So I waiting for the car, what happened? So he said, don't worry, how long will the car take? Sir, it's coming in 20 minutes. So this is outside Nanavati Hospital. So he stepped out of the gate and I was waiting with him. He puts up his hand, flags an auto down and said, Derek, it was a lovely morning, all's well, I'm off home. Sunil Dutt.
Wow.
In the auto.
Very sporting,
I got
very modest, very pragmatic.
Yeah, but I panicked, so I put my production colleague Gulu. I said, "Go with him, yaar, in the car. At least pay for the auto." But that was something which really stuck.
Derek O'Brien, if you weren't in politics or quizzing, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I think maybe
DJ Derek.
DJ Derek is on now. DJ Derek is once a month, and I'm really taking it seriously. DJ Derek, but I really think I want to write a book. Not a book on politics, not a book on reference. It's about India. Because I want that to be my legacy book. It's got nothing to do with quizzing or, research. But I'm working on something. It will take me another 2 years.
One word to describe your experience in Indian politics.
Humbling.
Okay.
Humbling, and I'll tell you why. There are lots of people who speak English like me or you. There are lots of people who can make a good speech in Parliament. But we don't have that kind of mass appeal to get elected. So when you have this big responsibility of representing a state of 10 crore, 12 crore people, and somebody has given you the opportunity not only to sit there once, twice, 3 times to put you in the first row of Parliament, that's the time you realize, hey, listen, you're only there because people have given you an opportunity. You cannot afford to be cocky or arrogant.
One piece of advice for young Indians interested in public service from Derek O'Brien.
Start with public service with the elders at home. Spend time with your grandparents. Spend time with your granduncles, your grandaunts. Stay connected to the teachers who taught you in school. All this is public service. Then you move to the next level. If you're staying in an apartment building, identify four or five senior citizens there and work it out that I can go and talk to them, listen to them for 1 or 2 hours. This is public service. This is how, we learned in our pada or locality at home. You got to start
At home and build up from there into society, into the country and the world. Derek O'Brien, that's the message of a public service to all the young people listening. Thank you very much for your speech shots. Welcome to Quizzitok, the podcast where we celebrate the power of learning, curiosity, and quizzing in today's fast-paced world. Our mission is to inspire students, teachers, and lifelong learners by exploring how knowledge shapes our lives and how we can use it to make sense of the world. Today, we are joined by someone who has not only been a leading face of Indian quizzing, but also continues to lead with passion and purpose in public life. Derek O'Brien is a pioneering quizmaster, author, and member of parliament who gained national prominence as the host of the Born Vita Quiz Contest, one of India's most enduring quiz shows. He founded Derek O'Brien and Associates, a firm specializing in knowledge and quizzing events, and has authored 54 quiz and reference books. He was awarded Parliamentarian of the Year in 2022. With Derek, it's always about asking the right questions and finding answers that matter. Welcome, Derek. Good to have you with us.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be here in this little basement studio in Delhi, and this is the first time we're doing something like this. Thank you for having me, Siddharth.
It's the first time I think both of us have been together on a forum, and I'm delighted, absolutely delighted.
Well, for those of you who are watching, I must tell you, Siddharth and I think only met 3 years ago. We were both in our 60s. Well, Siddharth is 70, almost 70. Wow, congratulations. And we kind of saw each other on television maybe, but it was such a beautiful occasion where we met 2 years ago. We had a dinner at home and Siddharth and Anita were over. I think if I look back on that, if I may get a little nostalgic,
Please.
And when you started Quiz Time in 85, I was 24, you were 31. And at that time, you're trying to climb this ladder and, he's doing television shows and we are doing stage shows, some kind of competition, but we never even met. And now that we have, I know for a fact that Siddharth is very comfortable in his own skin. I'm very comfortable in my skin. And that's why here we are. It's absolutely wonderful. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to be nostalgic. But I think more importantly, Siddharth, what you're doing with this series, we're actually doing audio history of quizzing. We are recording and keeping this treasure. Otherwise, it will all get lost.
I'm
Thank
looking
you for
forward to
doing-
hearing of that from you because, your family has been right at the forefront there of open quizzing. And this is one occasion to put it all on record, but also to discuss this whole business of the purpose of general knowledge, of foundational knowledge, and quizzing itself, and a whole lot of other things, life lessons too.
It's very interesting that you've used the word business. The two of us sitting in this room, for us, it was business. It was a business which you ran, and it was a business which I ran, and we got criticized for it, but that's okay. But I think the whole story is how it moved from a hobby into a business.
Derek, and people joke. Pranay used to joke with me, you'll always be a bong yaar. Because he thought I wasn't businessman enough because I've never had the business genes. I always thought of myself and our unit as a professional team, like architects do and all the rest of it. I never got into that. We've been risk averse and we haven't thought of it that way. But fortunately, the business followed. At least in my case, it was like that. Anyway, yes, but you're right. We had to make it into a viable enterprise. Yeah. And that was one of the things that you did. We managed, and a lot of other people are trying. And it's a challenge. You know that as well as I do.
Yeah, because why I said hobby, because if you look at 1967, when the first quiz show was held, from 67 to 85, you started your
Quiz time.
quiz time in 85. Before that, maybe from 67 to the early 80s, nobody charged for a quiz show.
Yes.
Now, after that, did Siddhartha Basu charge for quiz shows? Of course he did. Did Derek O'Brien charge? Of course we did. I'm not shy about it.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and I spoke about it just in one of the other podcasts. You know, quiz time, well, a national inter-college quiz wasn't my idea. I was roped into it by happenstance as a host.
Who asked you to
And I
do it?
came to it from theatre. My former college and
I lost the
colleagues.
person asked the questions today. I'm sorry. But it's okay. Only answer them.
Happy to share.
No, tell me.
It was the former friends from college who we were together, also making documentary films. And they stepped when Doordarshan opened. They made the first ever show. They asked me to host. And I was introducing, just by accident, Partha Basu, who was actually the quiz master for a particular format. They called it Safecracker. And Sagrika Ghosh, incidentally, was the scorer on that particular pilot. So I was asked to come for 10 minutes from the Taj where I was working and said, why don't you just give a rara introduction to Partha? I was in and out in 10 minutes. And then they said, 1 month later, why don't you host it? So I was just the host. And the princely amount of money that I was given, I left my job instantly, and my son was yet to be born, was 1,000 rupees per episode. And on that basis, I left my job, took the plunge back into performance and did it like that. But hey, this is about you. And from the audience, I just want to, for those who may not know, many do, but from hosting the legendary Born Vita quiz contest to penning books like Inside Parliament and continuing the rich quizzing tradition of the O'Brien family, Derek has dedicated his life to spreading the joy of learning and doing a whole lot of other things besides. Derek, welcome to Quizzitok once again.
Thank you.
Okay, now, I want to start, because you touched upon it, but I want to get into it a little bit more. Let's start with your personal journey. You started your career in first a bit in journalism and then in advertising and then transitioned into quizzing, which became such a defining part of your life. Tell us how it happened.
Actually, and after that into politics. So the first, what hasn't changed is I've always been in the space of communication. So while I was in sports world for 1 year, in my final year in college, and it's important to tell people who are watching this show, because we tend to talk too much about success and you did this and parliamentarian of the year. No, you need to know about failure and how to handle failure. I failed in class 8. I had to repeat class 8 because my math and science were poor. Failure.
Confession, my maths was terrible too.
2. I applied to St. Xavier's College in Calcutta and did not get admission. I had to go to Scottish Church, for which I'm ever grateful. So I think, Siddhartha, sorry, I'm getting a little philosophical. I'll come back. So I think while we talk about people's life journeys, we tend to, pluck the diamonds and say this is so. I like to put the 2 failures up front.
Yeah.
Having done that, yes, 1 year in journalism, which was communication, sports journalism. I learned lots. It was more like a college canteen. The magazine was Sports World. And if you look at the team who were in Sports World, they all went on to fly. Then 8.5 years, the best professional experience of my life in the greatest agency in the world and the greatest advertising university in the world, Ogilvy. Those were 8.5. And all what I've learned is from Ogilvy. And I've had the good fortune of actually Bunny Soraya, Jug and Bunny Soraya. Bunny was my boss. We actually worked with David Ogilvy. He came to Calcutta. So that was in communication. So that's the time I started doing quizzes for a fee. $500, $1,000. Around this time, your quiz time had started.
Okay.
So if you're talking about my journey, I haven't got to the quiz journey yet. So while I was in Ogilvy, I used to get quiz shows to do on the weekend.
All right.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
2,000 rupees, huge for a show. So if you go and knock up two shows on a weekend, you get 4,000 bucks. In 1991, 92, 91, 92, 92, 5th of January, quit my job and started doing quizzing full time from the dining room at home.
Is that right? 92.
92, 5th of January. I got married in November. So this was a big decision. So I took the plunge in 1992. And no TV. You were so big on TV. And so we would still do shows, but for stage shows. Brand equity quiz, Economic Times. Bonvita gets so much of publicity these days, but actually it was Nestle and Maggie which did schools in quizzes, in schools.
That was the big brain of Ajay Banga, who's now the head of the World Bank.
No, well, that
Okay, correct.
I'll correct you. Ajay Banga, the head of World Bank, there is a story, and but I must make a disclosure. I'll tell you.
No, sure.
So 88, no Banga. 88, 89, the guys in Calcutta, Nestle, and Sukanya Kripalu, who was in Delhi, they came up with this idea of Maggie quiz.
It was their baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did the 88 shows and the 89 and 90, and I had wherever I would go, I knew I was the stage show guy and Siddhartha Basu on television. Okay, but cool, absolutely cool. So in 1990, this young Sardar, if I'm using the right term, young Sardar, comes to Calcutta IIM and he wanted to meet me. He said, I heard you do the shows. I heard you're very good, and I've seen some pictures. But hold on, I have a problem. So I said, what's the problem? He said, you only give me Saturday or Sunday. You only can give me Saturday, Sunday. I said, Monday to Friday. He said, no, I want to change that. I said, what about? He said, I want you to do shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Weekdays. All the weekdays.
All the weekdays. I said, Ogilvy, creative head, Delhi and Calcutta, won't do. So I said, okay. How many shows? He said, no, how many shows can you give me? How many days can you give me? Worked out to 145 days in the year. So then I thought, maybe I should quit my job. Now, who is the guy who gave me this idea? In a little first floor Hare Street office in Calcutta, Nestle branch manager called Ajay Banga, who is today president of World Bank. And we've stayed in touch months, years, and we're still in touch. And Ajay and Ritu Banga are one of our closest friends. So that's the story.
Wonderful. He was a junior at college instantly for 5 or 6 years or something like that. And one hardly knew him, but know of him, of course. Incidentally, mentioning the Maggie quiz, the largest ever live ground quiz I've done, I don't know which year it was at the Indira Gandhi Stadium here for about 15,000 kids. And we did, we had live clues. We had people fashioning, displaying.
I don't know the year. It would have been pre-1989 or pre-1990.
It was around that time. Yeah. It was around that time.
So Banga was actually Ajay Banga was the guy who gave me that idea that, listen, what you're doing is fine, but then you do jump. But it was still stage shows, no TV. In 1992, Doordarshan came with the proposal with something called the environment quiz.
Okay.
It was tempting because I'd never done television.
Yes.
But then I remembered what I learned in Ogilvy, that you only launch your product once and make sure that launch is the right launch.
Right.
I thought it was a subject which didn't excite me at that time, environment. To his platform, Doordarshan, it was very difficult, but I said no. Then in 1993, the same team who organized the Maggie quizzes, Sukanya Kripalu, and switched to Cadbury and started the Cadbury show on the ground.
Right.
Rajiv Bakshi, it's important to have his name here also. He's the guy who wanted to do a television version of the quiz. So that's how that quiz went.
So that's how the Bonvita quiz on television came about. But before that, I think it was Amin Sayani who was doing it on radio, and before that, Hamid Sayani, his elder brother.
And then Amin Sayani. But when they were doing it on radio, they only had 4 cities.
Okay.
Only 4 cities. Research team was there, and we when we were in school, we would listen to that. Another very important moment in quizzing, again away from television, I'm trying to give you that perspective today, is 1988, where the late Dilip Chatterjee, a man ahead of his time, the head of marketing of Bata, started the All India North Star quiz, which was on the ground. 8 cities at that time was a very, very big quiz. The quiz master went away to Australia, Uncle Shadhan Banerjee. He was Calcutta based. And I was 27, and they were looking for a new quiz master. So Uncle Dilip called me to his office. I used to call him Uncle because I knew his daughters. And he said, I'm looking for a new quiz master. Again, this wasn't on television, and he gave me the North Star quiz to do.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. I'm going to rewind further.
okay.
I would rewind further to 1967, when it says that's the first time an open quiz was held, which was conducted by your father. I want to talk about a little bit about that, about your family quizzing antecedents, and also about your family. Tell us a little about that.
I will talk about the family since you've asked me, and that's why I think this is a great bit of quizzing history we're recording, and credit to you for doing this. But there is quizzing beyond my family, and we must give credit to those families as well. Otherwise, this is not only about the O'Brien family. So 1960, my dad was in Oxford University Press, OUP. My mom and he went abroad, and that time they were staying with friends, and they heard the university challenge.
Right, Bamba Gascoigne used to. Okay.
So when he came back in 65, 66, yeah, he was 66, he was 32. The local parish used to have one-act plays, and that one-act plays was very serious as up your street. There were some very serious, they were very serious about their one-act play. So this was an inter-parish competition.
Okay.
So Neil O'Brien said, let's change this inter-parish competition. Yes, we have the plays, so let's do a quiz. That's how the first quiz was done in a parish in Calcutta. A parish, that means a hall attached to a church, a community attached to a church. They had 5 teams, 4 to a team. There must have been about maybe 100 people in the audience, which wasn't bad. And my father came in there, and the questions were in a biscuit tin. So I had to make myself, or he wanted maybe to involve me, so I had to carry the biscuit tin. That was my only job, year after year. And they were written on strips of paper. The questions were written, handwritten.
Okay.
And say they were pulled. And so that's how it went from 67. Then they had a shield. The shield is still in Calcutta, called the Eddie Hyde Memorial Shield.
All right.
The president of the club passed away, so that's the shield. So that was 67, 68, 69, 70. Mainly the participants were people from the Anglo-Indian and the Christian community, but very soon it kind of expanded. And after that, what happened? In 1970, the second open quiz happened, which became the bigger quiz because Neil O'Brien went across the road to another club called the DI.
The Dalhousie Institute.
Yeah, we call it DI, just like, so there they started doing outdoor. So that's when it actually started to grow, 670. 2 years later, 1972, and credit to him, Francis Grosser, who now lives in Gurgaon, he wanted to do his own quiz. So that was the third quiz, 1972. So this is the way, this is open quizzing. They would get, the quiz master would have to get his own prizes. They would give out always hampers. And for some reason in the hampers were always bacon and eggs. Don't ask me why, but there were bacon and eggs.
Poor vegetarians.
Yeah, so it was all bacon. Then the lads from St. Xavier's, then there were a few other quizzes, all in these small clubs of Calcutta. And then St. Xavier's School and College, these were guys who were in class 11 and 12, they started winning quizzes. And I think that was an important point for open quizzing in Calcutta, where it became more cosmopolitan, pluralistic in participation. Then that went on till 1984, and the biggest jump in quizzing, then just about 1 year before you started quiz time, Dilip Chatterjee started the first sponsored quizzing. By
North Star
sponsored, I
quiz.
mean North Star. And actually, before that was something called the J.S. Lipton, Shadan Banerjee. So then came along a gentleman called Alban Skolt. Now, these names don't mean anything to people today, but I think it's important we document it. And otherwise, it's all Neil O'Brien and Neil O'Brien. No, there's Francis Grosser, Alban Skolt. All of them did quizzes. Mr. R.M. Sen. The Anglo-Indian community, which is a small community of 200,000. Never matter, no mind, the government thinks they're 267 as per the government record, which is wrong. So they had a great role to play. So what you did, Siddharth, this was a parish parlor game at best, which built up from 67. I think in the mid-80s, you took it to another level with a television quiz. All these gentlemen, all of them who've passed away, I think they gave birth to this hardcore quizzard. You're not a hardcore quizzard. I'm not a hardcore quizzard. So that group of hardcore quizzards, they've got their own, that's a cult.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of hundred people, 1,000 people, and respect to them, But I think it got changed after this television. These television shows came. Bonvita came and your quiz show came. Bonvita quiz came in 93, 94. And then suddenly, when you have Mr. Bachchan, I mean, that's where you, with your team and Anita and your production team, you all took it to another level. So there are people like me. Suddenly, my business was like boom time in 2000, like boom. You could charge anything. Forget about doing a show. You only had to research a show. And when a big show like that happens, and this also has to be documented, when a big show like ABC happens, where you pay for the format, etc., there are all the cheap copies which happen. Oh my gosh. There were like all kinds of copies. And you know who...
By the broadcasters at the time, I remember.
So I think people need to be called out. The guys, I mean, no offense to the guys who were asked to host the shows. No problem with them. Anupam Kher was asked to host the show. He hosted the show. He must have got some money. Good for him.
Anupam and Manisha, I think. The
Manisha Koirala is one series only.
Yes.
One schedule.
Okay, all right.
Then there were others who came. There was Mr. Govinda. Yeah, so my job was only to give the questions. But there was a successful show, again a rip-off of the original format, called Kotiswaram, which was hosted by Sarath Kumar.
In Tamil.
Tamil.
That was on show. Sun TV. That was
on Sun TV.
Yeah.
That's one we did.
Yeah.
And there I remember the line, for those of you who understand Tamil, "Na ready, ninga ready." So when the guy sat on the seat, you said, I'm ready. Are you ready? But then it had a naughty connotation also. So that was fun. Then there was another one in Malayalam.
Right, okay.
But that's still in the news.
Really?
Yes. For all the wrong reasons. Because the guy who was hosting that show, now this is a good clean show, so I don't want to make it controversial, but the guy who was hosting the show, the host at that time, is now in the Me Too. There's a big case in Malayalam TV and he's the main guy who is in. So all this quizzing also has this little bit of, masala. So all this happened, but I think the good thing which happened there is KBC took it out of that little niche, 150 people. It took it to everybody.
Absolutely.
It took it to everybody. So when we celebrate the nostalgia of the 1960s and 70s and 80s, we also have to celebrate the explosion of quizzing.
That's what happened, literally. And I think you've described the broad arc of exactly what happened at that point of time. Kolkata, as it's called today, it's sort of, that was the center. It was called the capital of quizzing. It had a whole lot of quizzards who were very well informed. There were all sorts of groups who were working. And a number of them came on later onto Mastermind, which was another show that I was doing. But they also thought of the likes of me as an interloper.
So was that. Total interloper.
But you had the antecedents.
I had legacy.
Yes, you had legacy.
So I had legacy. By the way, you used the term quizzard.
Yes.
I can tell you, I think I know the person who first used the term quizzer.
Who's that?
Somebody from Delhi,
Is that right?
Jug Suraya.
Okay.
Jug
He
Suraya.
was wonderful with all his
By the way,
inventions in
Jug
English.
Suraya was also a quizzer and quiz master in Calcutta. He
All
did a
right.
quiz called the J.S. Lipton quiz again in the early 70s.
Okay, I wasn't aware.
Sponsored by J.S. the magazine and Lipton,
Yes.
the chai company.
Okay.
So in the early 70s, he first used the word quizzer. I haven't heard the term so before that. So yeah, but then I think after
There are all those people who know the strangest things about the strangest things. And if it's not that, the thought of, for instance, I've always been averse to the term trivia because I don't think what it needs to be is about peripheral information with inconsequential information and so on and so forth. I've always thought of general knowledge as something beyond curricular work, something which expands your awareness of the world, and to make people interested in that. That was the approach. And to a large extent, it worked. Sometimes we did very specialized kind of quizzes. I'm sure you have too, on very specialized subject. In fact, other than Bonvita, one of the things you did successfully a number of years, I remember, was the brand equity quiz, which was in business and related things. Is that right? That went on for
actually one of the biggest feel good moments for me was, and for the organizers of the show, I don't want to mention the brand, uh, but when I said I'm not quizzing anymore because I had to do full-time politics and I was in parliament, then they discontinued the show. So I think in this conversation, it may not be the most popular thing to say, but I think quizzing peaked out sometime round about few years after Mr. Bachchan did the KBC at the peak. My feeling. And this is nothing to do with quizzing about anybody's quality of quizzing. After Mr. Bach, that level with your production team at Synergy and all, you guys were at a different level. I just think the audience has changed. And today, from the last 20 years, boys and girls in school and young people, they don't want to focus, and they needn't focus on the recall of knowledge. Since we're talking on a platform like this, it's not about the recall of knowledge which excited them. So we used to do quiz books at that time, we still do. But from the recall of knowledge, like we had a series called Be a GK Champ, say 2000, 2005, it's incredible. Boys and girls and their parents wanted to improve their soft skills.
okay.
Can I speak like Siddhartha Basu? No, or somebody who can speak English. So that became, can I be confident? Can I speak better English? So from recall in GK, I believe this happened around 2000, 2005. Then it became, how can I improve my soft skills? So we had a series called Be a GK Champ, but that changed to Know and Grow with Derek. So today, I think that is the place where people are moving to. The point you were making about trivia. Do you even know your colleague's mobile number? You don't. You don't need to know. So I think that is the change. But the knowledge part comes more into checking facts. That's another story altogether.
We'll talk about it.
But I kind of quit quizzing, not for any other reason, but I just felt that I felt we had kind of peaked.
When you're talking about quizzing on television, competitive quizzing, it has changed radically. But there's a lot of activity happening on the ground. I learn of it because I've been part of that for some time. And though we are not actively taking part of this beyond a certain, within certain limits, we know that on television, it's no longer necessarily drawing, competitive quizzing is no longer drawing audiences. But then appointment television generally isn't these days, Derek.
Good point.
Appointment television isn't.
I want to say, as a political person, we who's going to watch Sunday 12 noon Bonvita quiz contest, India quiz 9 p.m. I think you were.
Yes, absolutely.
9 p.m.
Yes.
Siddhartha Basu quiz time.
Yes.
That's now we'll watch it when you watch it.
That's one of the things that has happened, which is, appointment television is now an endangered species people prefer to watch. There are a number of programs that are still doing well because they are on OTT platforms, so you can watch it at your convenience.
Good.
But that has changed to a large
Well,
extent.
what's your view, Siddharth, if I may?
Please.
What is your view on the audience of young people? I'm talking about 10 to 18, 19, when this thing about knowledge as against self soft skills. Is that
Derek, I believe soft skills are important for everybody, beginning with the young, of course. Soft skills can be of different kind. And in fact, one of the things we've tried to factor into our quiz books has been tying them in with 21st century skills as defined by the NEP, or National Education Policy. But I also believe that contextual foundational knowledge is terribly important because it facilitates critical thinking and quizzing as a way to be able to question and to be able to recall facts when you need to is also important. In one sense, you're absolutely right that, this business of instant recollection, which is part of hardcore competitive quizzing, that some people have it because of aptitude or because of the way their brains are wired. Some people don't have it. So it has moved past that. But what has become terribly important now is to have contextual knowledge and information. So if Google is telling you something, or an AI is telling you something, how do you know that you're on the right track? You would know better than anybody, being in public life, of how much misinformation and propaganda and false information there is out there. And WhatsApp University and how it's going. How do you train, particularly young people, but also ourselves, each one of us, to have our antennas up and saying, okay, now, does that sound true? How can I find out? Where can I find out from? And I want to go back to that before we come back to this. I want to go back to the family situation. And because even your brothers have been in quizzing, your father was in it. I want to know a little bit about that. Your early learning experiences, I'd really like to know
so?
about.
Maybe I'm over shy about blowing my own family trumpet, but yes, my parents. It was very funny because we were, I think, 11 or 12 when we got father got transferred. So we were in Delhi for 2 years. I went to Columbus for 2 years, my brothers and I. And I remember when I was 12, my brothers were 11 and 10. Guess what? On Saturday and Sunday, we were taught to play bridge at home. Why bridge? Contract bridge.
Right.
So my dad said, let's play contract bridge. So he taught us contract bridge. My father, and this is the first and most important learning experience for myself and my brothers, he would read, and as everyone reads newspapers and everything else, but he'd always say, how do you recall? So you can't recall if you read. So my father had, his legacy was his diaries. So he would read and he would write.
Note it down.
Note it down as a quiz question in a diary. Unbelievable.
Wow.
From 1967. Okay. He's got all these questions. Some of the questions, when you look at, I know, one of the first questions on a fresh, and there's a new diary every time. Huh? By the way, the diary questions could be 1972, but the diary may be from 1968, right, because you would recycle the old diaries.
Reuse the old diaries.
So I remember one of those questions is, what is the name of the new car which Sanjay Gandhi is launching? At that time, in bracket, Maruti. So, suddenly when you look back on this question, so at home, Dad would write things down. So we never have to prepare for a quiz. When you're setting a quiz, okay, we've got a quiz next week. No, they were written down in the diary, number one. Number two, lo and behold, you can make any mistake, you can fail in class. But if you, by mistake, touch a shoe or your foot on a book, oh boy, that was like, and a lot of books at home, and the beautiful part is that was my father. My mother, go play football, be in the school team. So we had this great combination, so we were not a bookish kind of, bookworm, no, not at all. So there was this beautiful mix at home, and that was one. And I think a lot of music at home. And at the end of it all, I think It's a mix of cultures, where you went to school, who were the people in the neighborhood. If, for example, we went to this school in Calcutta, St. Xavier's, and later we got to know whose father was somebody and whose mother was somebody. But where we lived in Jamir Lane was a lower middle class Bengali neighborhood where we did Kali Pujo and we did Chanda. So it was a mix. And none of us, not my brothers and not I, none of us were in this serious quiz space. We were never. We were never. We were like, okay for quizzing. In fact, my brother Barry is a very good, like you, he was into drama and plays and that kind of thing. So that was the big influence on our lives of our parents. And I think the other important thing of my dad and mom, they allowed you to do. Dad, Mom, I'm quitting my job, Ogilvy. And what do you want to do? Quizzing. Shh. So, because it's full time, it had to be a full time. Then in 2004, Dad and Mom quitting my job and quitting quizzing and wanting, what do you want to do? Politics. So I think back to the basics. And one other thing, my dad and mom, which is very important in today's context. It's a simple rule. One is read, write, then recall. If you are asking a quiz question, 3 sources.
Minimum. Reliable, authentic, verified sources.
So, today, for a speech in Parliament, or any of the columns I write on politics, everyone, wow, Derek, so nice. I said, nothing, same rules. Same rules of the Maggie quizzes apply. This is the same rule. So that is what has changed. And this is not a political show, but one political party has changed that. So the idea is to how to fight the misinformation, which is a completely different ballgame.
Which I'm going to come to. But before that, I'm going to talk about Calcutta. Which is where you grew up, which is where your family was, and your shirt has the Howrah Bridge, I notice. And the Hooghly, very, sort of below it.
Okay.
Ravindra Setu, I believe that they call it now.
So let me give a plug to the designers. This is Dave R. Neil from Calcutta. Great designers. Okay. So that's the plug for you guys.
Derek, I wanted to ask you, you're born and bred in Calcutta, now called Kolkata. What has that meant to you? Growing up there, growing up in Bengal, what has it been like for you with Irish ancestry? And
I've never been to Ireland in my life, but it was my great-grandmother, paternal great-grandmother, who married O'Brien. So hence the title O'Brien.
Right.
But I've never been to Ireland. Apparently, on a tour in Ireland where my daughter went, unbelievable, happiest moment of my life, where the tour guide in Ireland pulled out this, Anya O'Brien, your father, and showed the picture. She was like blown. That is the only time Anya has been impressed with me. But in Calcutta, so we've lived in Calcutta. We are Calcutta. We are Bengali. For example, in school, Uchcho Madhyamik, where the higher secondary, we took first language Bengali.
Is that right?
Yes, in first language. So I read, write, romanced, wrote poetry, Bangla Khobar Kaush Pori. Every morning I read 3 Bengali newspapers and like just about.
Wow. I have to make a confession, because though I was born in Kolkata, I've never lived in that city ever. I've never lived in Bengal at all, and I can't read or write Bengali. Can you?
Doesn't matter. Can I read or write Bengali?
Just ask.
Well, I don't know. No, but I'll whether I read it. But Siddharth, we even need to celebrate that. So what if you can't read Bengali?
No, I'm not saying so anything.
Yeah. So Bangla, give me oh my gosh. Mr. Siddhartha Basu, give me a phone. He asked me whether I can read Bangla. Hey monihar amar nahi saje. I can sing also. Okay.
That wasn't a challenge.
No, it's okay.
Just a question. Just a curious question.
Some IPL auction story popped up. 20 মিনিটে শ্রেয়সের রেকর্ড ভেঙে দিলেন পন্থ কাঁধের লড়াই হারিয়ে ঋষভকে নিল গোয়েনকার লখনউ বস ইজ অলসো ফ্রম ক্যালকাটা আচ্ছা এই বছরে ক্রিকেট ফিরছিলেন পন্থ আইপিএল এর পর দেশের
You're reading from Anand Bazar.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow, from one of their sites.
One other side.
And fluently.
Obviously, I do my politics in Bengali, but I never give a bite in Bengali because in Trinamool there are tens and thousands of people who speak better Bengali than me. But I can pull up at the United Nations General Assembly. I was blessed. I was given the chance to speak there by my party, the Trinamool, and I spoke in 2012. And you're supposed to inform the team if you're going to use any other language. So I said I was speaking in English. But since it was Pujo, Durga Pujo in 2012, the first two lines were in Bangla. Everyone was very happy, but later the interpreters got very angry. They said, "Sir, you didn't tell us you were in Bangla." So that was, Siddharth, one of the high points of my life, getting a chance to speak for 12 minutes at the UN General Assembly, and that
Tremendous.
also 4 lines in Bangla at the top.
Fantastic.
So I think the beautiful thing is that we can celebrate all this. We can celebrate Siddhartha Basu and Anita Basu doing great work with quizzing on Indian television. We can celebrate some school show which was done by Derek. We can celebrate, it's not about, Yahoo. I think we that's the beautiful part where we can celebrate all of this, and we can also celebrate those 1,000 people, including my friend Dr. Naveen Jaikumar, who is an eye specialist, and he does eye surgery. He's a quiz master in Chennai. Mrs. Jaikumar, who used to participate. Mrs. Jaikumar and my father would. My dad was one of those old guys. He wouldn't mind losing, but the old misogynist in him, may his soul rest in peace, he would say, "Edit this. I was not." I said, the 2-3 ladies who his competitors in open quizzing who'd get under his skin.
Saranya Jayakumar.
Naranya Jaikumar from Chennai, one look, and then you answer the question with the Tony thing, then they'll give one look, and then they'll give like I got it. Doita Datta.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's another lady in the 70s, Rini DeSantos. And my gosh, and once Neil O'Brien and his team lost to the St. Xavier school team. Man, he drove us nuts. No. They got a specialist round only on flags. That guy, Abhijit Banerjee, no, he only know flags because he's just got a DMET. Obviously, he'll know flags. So, totally so where were we? I forgot. But I think, that there's so much to celebrate. But in all this celebration, let's not get too nostalgic. I think there is a lot to look forward to as well. And as new formats come, as these new fact check, I think the guys, Alt News, for example, they're doing some great work.
Yes.
They're not in the quizzing space, but they're in the space of knowledge and the space of fact checking.
Fact checking has become vital, and that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about. Is your advice for Gen Z and Gen Alpha and for everybody now, because everybody's subject to WhatsApp universities and, sort of rumor, word of mouth. In that situation, what would you say what is the best way to find out about things? You mentioned 3 sources. How do people do that, and why they need to check everything that is just being passed around? Tell me what you think.
I don't know, before I go to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the problem starts with Parliament of India.
Mm-hmm.
How much of it is being said is factually incorrect, and nobody's doing the checking. So if on a platform where Parliament doesn't have any fact checking mechanism, with what face can I suggest anything to folks out there? So the one thing is that everything you read on the internet, you have to find alternate sources for. Everything which you go, you put in, what's the Christian population in India? Go on Google and put it in. You'll find 7%, 9% is 2.2%. So I think you've got to look for alternate sources.
Reliable sources, which are verified sources.
Yes, verified sources. And that is where the authenticity comes in. And I'm sorry to say that all the legacy media are the first people who have to set the tone and have a responsibility.
And put into place standards and checks where
Yes.
everything is checked.
So this has to be done at every level. It has to be done at the legacy level where the brand. And I think it's not a bad idea to go back to the printed word for some things where you need an authentic book to check it. I don't know. You might say you need the authentic book. There can be audio history. Today, what we're doing. What are we doing? Now, if somebody disputes the fact that, no, before quiz time, Basu did quiz time. In 1982, I did something. You may have done something in 82 in a program at Doordarshan Chennai or Doordarshan Calcutta. No, quiz time is seen as the first.
National network show.
Fact checking is first. The first starting point of fact checking is do not forward information which you receive on your mobile phone. That's the starting point.
Right.
Because if you forward, then you're responsible for that.
Yes.
And I think otherwise it's too complicated, Siddhartha, to say, ye karo, don't forward it, read it, check it.
It's become very important because, even the language that is used to say a particular thing, it can change the factual situation radically.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to check. And I think it's very important for people to have the kind of education inputs and awareness to know that certain things sound wrong. You have to check it and check it in the right way and check it forward, and move it forward. As you said, you were talking about quiz time. Before, there were many other people who do it. Narottam Puri used to conduct quizzes. Dicky Vora used to conduct quizzes. Jasdev Singh used to go on television. There were so many other people who did that kind of thing. So this is, if you get down to it, it was the first independently produced national inter-college quiz on Doordarshan's national network. So you have to be careful of the wording. We've been ultra careful right from the beginning.
So I think the bigger point on the fact check is that people who are in high positions have to, or important, they have to use that power for good.
Yes.
What do you do when the Prime Minister of the country is putting out a factually wrong piece of information?
Anybody in public office.
Yeah, starting with the Prime Minister. So I know this is not a political platform, but so those are the folks who have to be, absolutely, and I'm talking about not points of view. Points of view, you can say anything. But factually, we have to be, so my people for young people, before you post on your Instagram or your Reels and your whatever else, please don't forward to the next person unless you find a way of checking.
You made a couple of very important points, which is that it's incumbent on everybody to be sure of the facts before they spread it or just forward it.
Because
particularly people in public office, it's become very, very important because the misinformation that can spread is terrible. And of course, some people deliberately do it.
No, but each one today, every one of you watching this podcast is an editor. You receive a piece of information, you put it on your family group without checking, you are the editor who's putting it out. So you have to be careful.
How does a child, to come back to the question, how does anybody, what are the kind of sources, what are the kind of reading would you recommend to do to get the right information? Because as you pointed out, newspapers could be widely erratic.
Yeah.
And Google too puts up the most popular search right on top. Even AI, whether it's ChatGPT, anybody else says, check your facts.
The authenticity of the source.
Yes.
Let me give you an example.
Yes.
If you're looking for cricket stats, you still check it with wisdom.
Yes.
That's the kind of, now I don't know whether wisdom is, out of date. The other good thing is it has to, when you're doing research, it has to be done with multiple sources. So that's how it's.
You put your finger on it, I believe, because this is something that we learned over time. The very first quiz that I did in quiz time, I used to be in questions by journalists who were on the team and they picked it up from newspapers. And at that time, there was no social media, but there would be letters to the editor. Amitabh Malik, the critic, would write and say, they got that wrong, or they mispronounced that, or they did that. So next time we took over content and we learned over time. On something like KBC, because they were, apart from anything else, there was money riding on it. You had to be able to withstand challenges, and those sources become vital. It had to be encyclopedic. It had to be official. It had to be absolutely beyond challenge, beyond reasonable challenge. And we followed the processes.
But Siddharth, You were doing this for KBC. Why? Because money was involved, because TV show.
We began in 86, actually.
Very
from the
good.
time I
So very
took over.
good. So very good. So where we need to look inwards rather than blame Gen X, and the same checks, if it's done for a TV show, be it Bonvita quiz or your books or your TV show, what about starting with the impulse of democracy in Parliament? So the new session or any other session, that's why I'm saying it has to be by example. You got to be setting by example. Tomorrow, if Harsha Bogle gives you a cricket stat, you know Harsha Bogle's cricket stat is going to be the right cricket stat, or or any of the
Within reasonable bounds, absolutely.
within reasonable bounds. So
But he's answerable too.
of course, and
If somebody challenges it, he has to. Yeah.
Of course, he's answerable. He's answerable, and it's in the past. And I think the most one everybody should stay off. One subject I think should be out of bounds, and that is religion. That is, and all religions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. I think we should stay out of that in the public domain, because religion is private. Festivals are for everyone. These various interpretations, etc., create a problem. So I used to avoid, in all quiz shows, avoid religion. And look where we are.
Factual basis, as it were.
Factual basis, you better to avoid. What is the interpretation? God knows. And today you're looking at all this. You're looking at fact check. But I think there are many organizations. I've never met this guy in my life, but there's a guy called Mohammed Zubair who I follow on Twitter.
Pratik and Zubair, Alt News.
Yeah. I mean, these are Pratik Sinha, I know, but the guy who works with him. I mean, these are evangelists. They're
Fact-checking evangelists.
fact-checking evangelists. So they must be, and they've got a lot of, algorithms and different technologies. I think they must help, because this is not just a quiz show thing anymore.
No, fact-checking for any public comment
Yeah.
or anything that is shared publicly has become now very important, and everybody needs to be able to do it at their level, but officially too, where internationally, whether it's a presidential debate in the United States or wherever it is, fact-checkers are simultaneously working on it.
Just
And
that,
immediately that goes up.
I think I've just given you a new business idea, because you're still so young at 70. So I think before your 70th birthday, you start this new thing where, because you're into this, I think you'll be doing a great service for society.
I'm happy to pass on the know-how, but it's for young blood now.
To do it.
Derek, thank you. Yeah. And business, I've never had the business instinct.
But see,
mind you,
I
I had prudence, and we had the sense, and Anita particularly, she made sure that, our outfit was never, ever in the red. We were always in the black, but modestly so. And we did that, but at the moment we are happy to now just pass on the torch.
as a not a business idea. I did not mean business in the sense of making money business.
Sure, I understand.
As a give back.
Yeah.
Because you and very few people have a credible face when it comes to knowledge. So how can we use you, myself, now I'm in the political space, not others. How can you use all this to stop this spread of fake news?
Very important.
I want to tell you one thing. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I haven't given him advance notice for this, okay? I would really want the two of us, for a good cause. I hope you're listening carefully. The cause has to be good, with something which we'll all agree on. We will do a couple of quiz shows together. Don't say no. And whatever we raise from those quiz shows, we will give to a charity of our choice.
Derek, I accept. And let's figure it out. We have to find
So
people
coming soon, we don't know when. He's got a busier schedule than me, okay? Whenever I ask him, Anita, now he's on this cruise, now he's on that holiday, so we'll work it out. Fact check. ये भी fact check करो. No, we really want to do this. We want to do this for a cause where Siddhartha Basu, Derek O'Brien will come and we'll work it out. But we must do these quiz shows to raise money.
Great. You mentioned legacy. It's very important, but I think it's now reached a critical stage where fact-checking, where being knowledgeable of what is true, what is not, having the contextual information has become absolutely vital. The last thing we do on our podcast is something that we say, what's the buzz? So my question to you is, before we wrap up, what's next for you? What message would you like to leave to our listeners?
The one message, since we're talking about knowledge and we're talking about how to, that kind of thing and how it's been developed, we discuss the history of quizzing in India, which has been so beautiful. I think power for good. I think so many of us have power. But the more of us who use power for good, that will be the game changer today. And different people have different ways of interpreting power. There can be political power, there can be, educationists who have power, there can be money power. But once you start using power for good, you will feel different. And some industrialists have millions of dollars, that also can be power for good. And I think this is where, as public representatives, this is something which I have learned actually from Mamutadi. She has all the power, winning elections, but she uses power for good. And that's, I think, that's a thought which goes above all religion, all everything else. So I think that's, I do one quiz every year. Okay, I do one quiz every year for the Advertising Club Bombay. And I've never done a quiz for free, and I still don't do a quiz for free. So I tell them, you have to pay me, 7 lakhs or 10 lakhs. I'll give you the names of 7 charities, send the check to the charities. So Siddhartha has never done a quiz for free. Maybe you have. I have never done a quiz.
I have.
Oh, you have.
Many.
So I always feel that, no, you'd pay. So that's also power for good. The Advertising Club Bombay do the quiz, they raise the money, we're all very happy. Yeah. We're going to do something. Siddhartha and I are going to do power for good. He's not a politician, so I'm a politician, so we'll set an objective for that. We're going to raise not thousands and lakhs, we'll raise a few crores of rupees and we'll do something which is power for good.
We will. We should. Whether we will or not, we should. And if people support this enterprise, this particular initiative,
Anita will she's the main organizer.
All right. Derek, thank you for joining us on Quizzitok. Your journey, insights, stories have been terrific to listen to, and particularly your take on quizzing history. I'm sure our listeners, everybody out there, will walk away with a renewed love for learning and a deeper appreciation for the power of knowledge and the power to do good. Right. To all our listeners, let's keep that spirit alive, stay curious, question more, and celebrate the joy of knowledge every day. Until next time on Quizzitok, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep growing. And don't forget, there's always more to discover. See you soon.